Hello and welcome to Commercial Real Estate Explained, where we help people make informed decisions about commercial real estate. I'm Dave Carlson. Thanks for tuning in. In this week's video, we're going to talk about EMDs. That is an acronym for Earnest Money Deposit. What are these? How do they fit into commercial real estate transactions? Well, most people that have bought or sold a residential home understand the concept of a deposit. That's basically what we're doing here. There's just a little more nuance to it on a commercial transaction. So as the name implies, it's a earnest money deposit. If you want to go into contract on a commercial building, oftentimes a seller is going to expect you to put some money down to demonstrate your earnestness in buying the building. This number can be negotiable. I'm not a residential expert, but my understanding is there's pretty set numbers that you expect to see. On a commercial real estate transaction, just like everything else, it's entirely negotiable. Sometimes buyers like to come in with a large deposit just to demonstrate how strong they are financially. Some buyers want to keep that deposit as small as possible because they want to, keep the cash for another transaction. So all sorts of different ways to go with it. It is negotiable. Generally speaking, we see about 2 to 10% of the total purchase transaction. That's usually what you see as a deposit. Now, one thing that clients ask me all the time is, this is something you should talk about before going into contract, but is that deposit refundable? And how long is it refundable for? And what are the terms of when it can be refunded? This is a very, very important aspect to understand from your purchase and sale agreement. If you don't understand anything else in your PSA, you need to understand your deposit, how much it is, and when it goes refundable. So basically, your purchase and sale agreement, like we talked about in a previous video, is the rules of the transaction. It's the contract that you sign that says, if I decide to buy this commercial building, this is how we're going to do it. It's different steps that you have to hit and different things that you have to do in order to make the purchase. So part of that PSA is going to talk about your deposit. Generally speaking, and once again, it's all negotiable, you usually have a period. Sometimes it's called a physical inspection. Sometimes it's called your due diligence contingency period. It basically allows you to dig into the building and understand, is it what you thought you were buying, and do inspections and run your numbers again. This period is usually where you can get your deposit back. Let's say you go into contract, you put $30,000 down as your earnest money deposit, and then 15 days into it, you realize that the roof is completely shot. It needs to be totally replaced. You don't have the money, or you don't want to deal with that, and so you decide to back out of the transaction during your due diligence period. You are basically allowed to step out of the transaction, cancel escrow, and you're going to get that deposit back. So once again, really important to know when you can get your deposits back. Make sure you talk to your broker and your attorney that's looking at the PSA to understand that process. Another important thing to know about earnest money deposits is when they are due. So oftentimes PSAs will stipulate, within, let's say, 5 days of executing the PSA, you need to have your earnest money deposit in. So, that's just a reminder to make sure you understand your deadlines and your escrow timeline. When you go into contract and it says it needs to be there within 5 days, then you need to be ready to wire that money and get it there. So just a friendly reminder to understand when your earnest money deposit needs to be in. And of course, make sure you actually have those funds. You don't want to go into contract and say that you're going to put $30,000 down and only have $20,000. Like, that's going to be a very short transaction that no one is going to enjoy. So a bigger question, and we'll get into this later on another video, is what happens to your deposit when it is non-refundable. This is when you get to a point in the transaction where you basically have to go non-refundable on that deposit. You want to be very careful doing that, and you do not want to do that unless you were very, very, very confident you're going to be buying the building. But we'll get into it in another video, but at some point your earnest money deposit does become non-refundable, which means if you decide to back out between that day and the close, essentially you lose that deposit. I'm not an attorney. Make sure that if you're ever in this situation, you talk to an attorney, but that's the basic of it. So thank you so much for tuning in. Hopefully this makes EMDs a little more straightforward. If you got any value out of this video, please hit subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. We're putting out one video a week, and this is basically a series to help people understand how to buy commercial real estate. Whether you're doing it for the first time or whether you're a veteran, hopefully there'll be some tips in here that help make your next deal a little smoother. Thanks for tuning in.